Hey friends, it's the last week of January, which means that you have 5 days left to take advantage of 2 amazing opportunities. Number 1, our January bonus content will be expiring at the end of this week. So take action today and become a subscriber. You do have an opportunity to get 50% off your first month subscription. So take action on that today. You also have the amazing opportunity to sign up for one of our consulting crash courses that will be occurring throughout this year. Now, we have a 20% off discount that it is ending on January 31st. So you don't want to miss that opportunity for you and your team. All that to say, take action. Today's the day. Enjoy the episode.
Hey friend.
Hey.
So I know you already know some of what happened and transpired in my office, but I think this would be a good one to talk about because it's just so fresh and there were a lot of tangential things that came out of this that I thought would be great topics for our listeners to think about because I was thrust into it and I'm really hesitant to talk about it because I don't want it to feel like a recurrent theme and a reflection on me. I'm serious. You're laughing, and I know why you're laughing.
Sorry.
But you can see where I would hesitate on this because somebody doesn't know me and doesn't know like all the OCD that I have about things. You would think I'm just falling ass backwards, right and left, and like, oopsie-doo. So I'm going to talk about this, but I'm going to preface it with, I'm defending myself going, dude, I don't know. I don't know what to say. How is it just me? I don't know. I don't know. Do you?
I don't know because you're such a precautionary, like, cross every T, dot every I, every system in play, like you're overboard in a good way on these things. I just
do you have a client that this has happened to twice now, or even once?
Yes, plenty of oncers.
Okay,
plenty of oncers. 2 I'm hesitating on. Okay. So
well, WTF, man. Okay, so whatever. Let's just talk about it here. But I just want to say, I'm if anybody has any suggestions, please let me know because I am clearly not doing something right. But it made me feel better because you were there on Thursday for our team meeting day and you even were like, I'll say what you said later. I was like, I'm so glad she said that because, but okay, now I'm just talking and let me slow down, back up, connect some dots here. So, let's see. I don't even know where to start this. But let's say Wednesday. It was Wednesday in my practice, right?
Yes.
This past Wednesday. And I wasn't there. I had to take my mom to an appointment and then my dad to somewhere else. So I had a day off. That was my administrative /
caregiving day.
Caregiving day, right. And so I'm with my mom at her first appointment, 8:30 in the morning. I've dropped my kids off, gone across town, picked her up, gotten her to her appointment, and like right then I look at my phone as we're waiting for her to be called, and I see a image come through from my RDA on text, and it's like this bench, and I'm like, what is she trying to show me here? And the words say like broken bench something, and I'm like, okay. Didn't really connect the dots there. And then like about 10 minutes later, I'm like checking my email and I see an email from my receptionist and in all caps. And it's an email to you and I, which I'm sure like you hadn't seen. You're probably busy with clients. The only reason I saw it is because I'm sitting in a waiting room waiting to be called with my mom. And it's in all caps and it says incident, details of the incident. I'm like, what the hell is this? So I read it and it's basically like same as before. A new patient in the office, so somebody we don't have rapport with. And I guess we have our play area in the back, and there's a bench. So I'm going to get into all the nitty gritty of all of this, but for now, there's a bench that, it's a normal bench. It's not a pedo-sized bench. It's for anybody can sit on. And I guess this dad sat down, and the bench collapsed. So now he's on the floor, and they hear this big thud. And then I guess the two people at the front desk come running back, and this guy is like trying to pick himself up, dust himself off, checking himself, like, did he get hurt anywhere? And like, they're like, what happened? And apparently the bench he was sitting on collapsed. And so where I say, for anybody who's a newer listener, I've talked a lot about the other incident in our office that happened 2-ish years ago.
Yeah.
Which it's still not resolved, by the way, but it was a young patient, new patient at that, same thing. Not a patient of record, somebody we don't have rapport and goodwill with. And this 2-year-old climbed onto a stool, put all her weight onto a gaming station, fell, busted her lip open, had to go to the emergency room, and now I'm being sued for her lifelong trauma with her scar and her deformity and all of that. So that's still in litigation. I still don't have a end for that for anybody. Resolution, yeah. So here we go again. Here we effing go again. Somebody else has had an accident in my practice. So I'm sitting here going, if I was somebody who didn't know me, I would be like, what the hell are they doing in that practice? But then I stop and I go, of all the places I go to, any doctor's office, and I've been in the doctor's office for both of my kids' pediatrician appointments, 2 different sick visits a week apart, and I'm looking around the pediatrician's office, I'm like, a kid could hang from that and hurt themselves. I could sit in this chair and the chair collapse on me. Like, am I the only one? Like, is every other office going and checking every chair daily to make sure? Like, what, how, and you said it in our team meeting, this is what I was alluding to before, you said, because we do office walkthroughs, I think once a month, once a week,
yes,
where we act like we're a new patient going through the practice, and you're looking for, like, paint's dinged there, that sign is crooked there, that rug is got a turned corner there, we need to re-stabilize that so nobody trips on the rug. Like, we already do that. I don't know many offices that do.
No.
Anybody? Any of your clients do this?
I've got, because I preach it, I've got definitely a handful that do, but no, it's the exception. It's not the rule.
Thank you. So we do that anyway. And I was like, I don't know. Do we need to add to that, sit in every damn chair in this practice to make sure you're not going to fall?
Or even to take it a step further. Look underneath the chair. Lay on the ground. Look underneath the chair and evaluate, tighten every screw and evaluate.
And you said that. You said that in our office. You said, maybe that's what we need to be doing. And I was like, for the love of God, is anybody in any business doing this?
Right.
Or am I just that unlucky that this happened twice now in my practice? So now, like, my brain just goes to the liability company. If I called them back now, I'm like, oopsie, had another guy fall in my office. Like, nobody's going to insure me.
Right.
So anyway, I don't know. So, okay, let's back up then and get this out of my head and just kind of go, okay, so what my receptionist sent me was incident, details of the incident. She's like, this dad came in, sat down on this bench, he fell, we checked on him, he's fine. He said he was fine. He said he didn't need anything. We removed the bench. He's supposed to bring his kids back tomorrow. Like, he brought the one kid, he's bringing the other 2 tomorrow morning. What do you think if we had a gift card for him? Like a massage gift card, something nice. And, this receptionist is one of our super thoughtful ones. She's always, like, looking at things like that. These little customer service touches are always something she always comes up with. And so I really appreciated that.
Yes.
Because I'm sure, like, she probably felt horrible that happened to him in our office. Like, she wasn't faking any empathy or anything like that, and she really was concerned about this gentleman. And probably, like, she really does view the office as our home, and she's probably embarrassed that this happened in our home to a guest in our home, which I thoroughly appreciate. So my response was, that is a great idea. Let me see what I can find today. So as I'm sitting there, my mom's in her appointment, I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, like, what do I get at this point? If we're going with a massage gift card, do I do like a massage envy? Do I do $50? Do I do $100? Do I do $150 to cover the tip? Like, what do I don't know, maybe do I do a spa finder? And so as I'm, like, starting to think about the logistics of this, then I stopped and I went, wait a minute. Hold on. From liability hat, what does this look like? And me being just very dumb, I knew that liability was something I should consider. Now, you added it with a definitive statement, so I'll let you get to that in a minute. But for me, in that moment, I was like, this may not be a smart idea. And also from the point of, if we're coming at this from a customer service, I care about you, could that blow up in my face? Like, if I gave you a $10 gift card to Starbucks, sorry for the incident in our office, are you going to be like, $10? That's all I get? If I give you $50 for a spa, $50, is that all I get? Massage envy, shouldn't I go to the Four Seasons? Like, I just, not knowing people, like, could this blow up on me? That's all I was thinking about from liability. Like, you brought a whole nother liability perspective, but for me, that's where I was like, this is where you're trying to please somebody and it can blow up on you. And then I thought about it from like, okay, if this had happened to me and I was with my daughter at the pediatrician and I fell out of that chair, the chair collapsed from under me, I would be mortified because I'd be thinking it was my fat ass that broke the chair. And how many times do I apologize for this? Do I offer to pay for another chair? If I was bringing my other daughter back the next day and they mentioned, oh gosh, Miss Kuba, are you okay? Like, whatever.
The embarrassment of that.
I would be freaking mortified. I would be mortified if I opened my mail and I saw this gift card and my husband's like, why did you get a gift card? My fat ass broke their chair at the pediatrician. Like, do I have to relive this? And then what is my husband going to say? Oh, you broke the chair. They only gave you a $10. You know, like, it just could go on and on and on. And frankly, I would rather never to speak of this again if this had happened to me, right? Like, let's pretend like this didn't happen. And so that's how I started kind of thinking about it and going, okay, like, with that in mind, a male versus a female, a male is probably more likely. I don't know. What do I know? I don't know. And so I kind of started going, well, if he said he was fine and would rather forget about it, but then I don't know. Is he going to go home and tell his wife this is what happened? Now his wife going to call us and say he's limping or he's a backache? Like, oh my God, I have no idea what to do here now. I don't know what to do. So then I messaged you. It's like, what should we do here? And so then I'm messaging my manager. Well, my manager wasn't copied on that initial email, just you and I were. So I'm like, okay, I need to loop her into this. Why didn't receptionist loop her in to begin with? And I still don't have the answer to that. I don't know. And so she and I start going back and forth over, you know, she's like, well, I'll be out and about. Let me try to get more information. She goes, because I didn't actually deal with that, Dad. So let me go talk to the receptionist, kind of see how Dad's demeanor was and kind of go from there. So actually, before I even go further, do you think everything I've said already, am I making too much out of this? Like, would most people just be like, oh, the dad was fine and move on? Like, what are your thoughts to this point?
Well, if you have a response of, oh, thank goodness he's okay, moving on, hold your freaking horses, because no, this is exactly, we are in an extremely litigious society, more so than I have ever seen before. And which is why once I finally got to my emails and your messages, I was just sick. This kind of stuff, when it pops up for my clients, I am immediately sick because unfortunately I'm a worst case scenario situation. Now I can talk myself back from it, but my mind, because I'm a planner, I'm a strategist, how can I solve problems? So when something like this comes up, my mind goes all the places you just went. And then I start trying to go, how can we solve this? How can we get out in front of it? So if you're somebody that's like, well, thankfully he was fine. Just wait. Because something can happen. I even said this in the meeting. I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but somebody said, like, thankfully the dad was, seemed fine. And I think this will be in our past. And I was like, it may seem that way, but he can file a claim at any point. We had the same exact thoughts about the little girl that fell in your practice. It was a couple weeks later. You and I were both like, starting to breathe a sigh of relief. We hadn't heard anything, like, hopefully we're past this. And then bam, what was it, 2 months later? It was quite a while after the incident that you received the notice from...
you know what? I think it was almost a year later.
Was it?
Almost a year later. Yeah. Okay. We thought it had gone away, and then I think because I don't know, whatever. It was where a few months went by, and I think we got something from a lawyer, and then our side, our liability company, countered back, and then we never heard. We thought it went away.
Yeah. And
then it was like a year, at the year mark, I got served with the subpoena or whatever it was that I got served with.
Yeah.
Okay.
So no, these are not the wrong reactions. And I know I'm all about practice happy, and that means worry less, practice the way you want to practice. Your practice should bring you happiness. Like that is my motto. Literally, it says practice happy under all my signatures. So I am a firm believer in that. So I hate to say something that might cast worry on any one of my clients or any one of these listeners, but you just cannot be too careful in these situations. Please don't assume that everything's okay and we go on our hunky-dory merry way. When something like this happens, it should cause a total and complete halt. How did this happen? Did we handle it correctly? What do we need to do to make sure this doesn't happen again? You got to have an aggressive reaction to this situation, because all the things that you mentioned could absolutely happen. And the choices that you make, even down to the things you say, are so critical.
So that's where I want to throw up, because I don't know if I had been there, would I have made the situation worse? Would I have made it better? I don't have the answer to that. Thank goodness I wasn't there. But part of me, because I tend to be like my receptionist, where I'm a people pleaser. I want to make sure people are okay. And I'm mortified that this happened while you were a guest in my home. And I probably would have been stumbling over myself. Are you okay? Are you okay? How did I? Like, I could just see myself making it, like, if he hadn't thought about it as something, what if something I said made him now go, oh, wait a minute here.
Yeah.
So I think that I'd like to come back and talk more about that, so that people have maybe some tips to coach their teams with. So for me, then again, the fact that my manager didn't really know, I kind of was like, I don't know what to think about that. Maybe it wasn't that big a deal, but at the same time, my receptionist is sending me this with all these caps and like making it seem like it's a big deal. So I guess I'm not sure. I guess I'll just wait for Bethany to tell me what she thinks. And so as the day is progressing, right, like I get my mom through her appointment, I get her back home. I've got now appointments of my own. And so as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to err towards, I don't want to make a big deal out of this, and I don't think we should do a gift card for the two reasons. Simply because I think I could get the gift card wrong and actually upset somebody who maybe wouldn't have been upset if I don't compensate them what they think or what they like or whatever. And or I would be mortified. Yeah. So I think just from that alone, I think I'm leaning towards don't say anything and just be ready. Now, be ready for what? I don't know. Like, do I need to document this? Where do I document this? How do I document this? So, but because I was running around all day, I kind of was just, it was in the back of my mind, but I hadn't really processed the whole thing. And I think I was waiting to talk to you to kind of go, okay, help me figure out what I'm doing here. And so I ended up at my own chiropractor appointment, and they have a bench. And so I asked them, I was like, hey, what would you do if I fell on this? And my chiropractor, who owns her, business there, she was like, I think I would just apologize profusely, make sure they're okay, and I would leave it at that. And I was like, okay, that's what I'm leaning towards as well. And I think for me, that alone, I'm sure dental offices, again, I'm going to pick on medical because I always pick on medical, but it's how I feel. I feel like there's so many medical that don't even acknowledge you. I've just gone 2 visits in a row with my kid, 2 different kids for a sick visit. Not one did the nurse ask the kid, how are you? Yeah. What's wrong, baby? Why are you not in school today? Come on back. Get on the scale. Here's your temperature. Mom telling me what's going on. Like, they're so not personable people. And I think dental, we kill it. Like, I think the fact that my receptionist jumped up and acted like she cared about this man and his welfare, she wasn't acting. She really
genuinely
didn't care.
Does.
But I think the majority of medical offices would probably make you feel like it was your fat ass that broke my bench.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's how it would be. So the fact that we already made sure he was okay, but then I stop and I go, is that not what we should have done?
Right.
Should we have played it like medical and been like, oh, wow, did you jump on that bench? Wow, sir, how much do you weigh? Is that how we should have handled this? Like, what? I mean, like, and I'm being serious. I mean, I'm being funny, but I'm being serious. Like, how should we? Like, to me, the fact that the chiropractor said she would do the same thing. She would show concern. Oh my gosh, are you okay? I'm so sorry. What just happened here?
Yeah.
But maybe not overdo it.
Correct. So this is where we don't want to say too much. So, and it's hard because this is in the moment. It's not like we are like, oh, a man just fell on that bench. Huddle up. What's our strategy? No. we're knee-jerk reaction. We're going to check. As medical professionals, we should check on the person that potentially is hurt. So, but we have to control what we say in that scenario. So,
which is so sad and ridiculous, honestly.
It's sad that we even have to make that comment, but we could unintentionally imply guilt if we are overdoing it with what we're saying. So, for example, and we said this in your team meeting, but yes, thank goodness they went and checked on him. Are you okay? Oh, here, my goodness, let me help you up. Anywhere hurting? And check on him. I'm going to throw in another comment, which will segue into something else. Let's just go with this for now. But check on him. And then, oh my goodness, let me get this bench out of the way. And we're moving that bench out of the way. Let me find you a different chair. Here, have a seat here. Even bringing a chair to that area, even to keep him potentially in that particular area. I am so sorry. Can I get you anything? Oh goodness, I'm so glad you're okay. And then we walk away. Here's what we don't want to do. Come around, oh my goodness, are you okay? Oh my gosh, what happened? What in the world, this bench? Like, let me check this out. Somebody bring a flashlight. Let's look at this bench together. Let's see what happened. And, oh, what could have happened? Like, if we're making a big deal about the thing that he got injured on, then we are starting to plant the idea that something was wrong with that bench. Or, oh my goodness, this bench. Well, now I know why I kept cleaning up these black screws all around this bench. Well, dadgum. Whoa, Nelly. You just admitted that you knew something was wrong with the bench and you left it there, which is not. So we've got to be really controlled. As long as we keep it on the patient care. Are you okay? Can I get you anything? Let me get a chair. But don't elongate it unless they're hurt. Thankfully, this man was not hurt. As far as we know, he'd said nothing hurt. But if they're hurt, that obviously leads to a different set of scenarios. Like the young girl in your practice that fell, she was hurt. And so we address that differently. Now, this is one thing I always suggest is the doctor should immediately be notified. Even if the person is okay. They're getting up and they seem fine. We have a doctor in the building that should come over, and if nothing else, just verbally check. Hey, did you hit anything, when you're going down? Are you feel okay? Oh, yeah. And the dad might have said, oh, yeah, I'm totally fine. And if he kind of brushes off the doctor, then the doctor moves on.
Would that, because I could see somebody's argument being, but what if that triggers the patient to go, I was fine, but now that he's asking if I'm fine, should I suddenly start saying, does that ever,
no,
could it backfire on
Now,
him?
he doesn't need to elongate it. So he's not like pulling out a stethoscope and listening to his heart and pulling out a flashlight to check for concussions. Don't do any of that unless we believe the patient is injured. If we as medical professionals believe that the patient is injured, he went down head first and is acting funny, we need to check for a concussion and we need to take all of those appropriate steps. That's a different story. In this particular case, the man said he was not hurt. The doctor's just coming by to casually check. You okay? I heard you fell. Anything hurting for you? So we keep it casual. So this goes back to that mirroring type communication. If the dad's kind of brushing it off like it's no big deal, we're still doing our thorough check, but we're brushing it off like it's no big deal as well. In this particular case, I do think anything like that any injury that happens in the office or potential injury, the doctor does need to be made aware so that he or she can assess the situation. And I think that's an important aspect to this as well.
So I'm glad you said that. So let's go back to what happened here. So as the day is going on and I'm kind of like going, okay, I'm formulating my plan because they said that the gentleman was coming back the next day with his two other kids. So I'm like, so we need to know what we're going to say or not say or do or not do the next day. And even though I'd kind of ruled out in my own mind not giving a gift card and whatever, but if you had told me to give a gift card, then I needed to have that ready. And, if I'm going to write a card with it, so I just was needing to kind of figure out what the game plan was going to be. So then I reached out. What was the next step? Then I reached out so I'd been in touch with my manager. You were looped in to messages. And all of a sudden I was like, dum-dum, why don't you call my associate who was there, I haven't bothered to ask him, because then he can shed some light on the demeanor of the dad, the disposition, was the dad acting funny? Was he seeming like he was normal, but then now he was kind of being snippy and short? Was he very gracious when he left? Like, I was trying to gather some nuggets so I could figure out how best to play this. So call my associate. By the way, this is like at 6 p.m. Call him. He picks up. I'm like, hey, man, do you have a minute? Yes, I do. Okay, so tell me about the dad that fell. Huh? The dad that fell, the new patient dad, the one in the morning that fell. I don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, what? And I'm like, you don't know anything that a man fell this morning in the practice and broke the bench. You are unaware of any of that going on. He's like, I do not know what you were talking about. And I was like, I was so annoyed. And I was like, okay, never mind. Thank you. And I hung up. And so I was pissed at associate, right? Because in my mind, I'm like, this was such a slow day. I looked at the schedule the day before. There's like 5 patients there in the morning. It's not a big office. How the hell do you not know that a gentleman fell in the building? Like, how are you that clueless? What is wrong with you? Well, talking to my manager, she's like, no. We had a lot of screamers in the office. We had a couple of special needs kids. And I don't know that he heard what happened. And if the front desk people didn't tell him,
how would he know?
And I was still like, so I'm telling my husband, because he could see the look on my face when I walked in the door, and he could just see the look on my face. I was pissed at this point. And he's like, what happened? And I was like, well, so I give him the brief rundown. And then I'm like, an associate has no clue. And he's like, how would he? And so luckily that calmed me down. I'm like, okay, you're right. Like, let me quit being like, I wasn't there. I don't know. So I was like, okay, that's fair. So again, I was about to run out again, had to get the kid from piano lesson, whatever. So I'm like, I just want to look up to see if I can figure out who this dad was, and are there any notes about anything, anywhere, like whatever, because associate didn't even know which dad it was. And I'm like, okay. So I was able to log in, look it up, didn't get any clues there, but I was like, okay, but maybe associate, now that I know who it was, can get back with him and say, so call him back. And he's like, okay, in the meantime, like, 15, 20 minutes that we had hung up, he called one of the assistants and was like, Kuba just called me. What the hell is she talking about? Yeah. And so assistant briefed him on who it was. And so when I called him back, I was like, okay, so apparently it was this dad. And he's like, yes, I talked to the assistant. He goes, all of that must have happened after I talked to him. He goes, because he was sitting on the bench. And then I pulled him up to come look at an x-ray on the computer to talk about certain things. And then I think he went back and sat on the bench. And then maybe somebody else pulled him up again. So in my mind, what I liked hearing about that was, it's not like the dad just sat and it collapsed. Like, at
he was
that
up
point,
and down off of it.
Yeah, so you'd already sat on it and it was a safe place. So maybe you did break the bench. I don't know what you did. So it gave me more like, okay, I do have some defense here. Like, that we're not just putting out faulty things for people to sit on. And by the way, people sit on that bench all day long. Yeah. So I really don't know how would I know that the bench is giving out? Yeah. Like, I really don't know the answer to that. How do I know that some kid in between wasn't jumping on it and I just don't know. Like, how does one protect their business is another question that I still don't have the answer to. But in this particular case, I'm like, it's not like the dad didn't sit on it. He sat on it and was perfectly fine for a while. It's the second or third time he sat on it that it collapsed. So anyway, and so I was like, what do you think? And whatever. And so I kind of, though, to him, I was like, if I was you, I would be kind of pissed here because the staff has left you high and dry. And so you just needing to know that communication, for whatever reason, why they didn't choose to communicate with this to you is bizarre to me. But, it was another good thing for me too. And I think also with the manager not exactly knowing, and already in my mind too, I was kind of annoyed at her, to be honest, because I was like, the schedule was not robust. There's 5 kids in the building. There's 3 assistants, 2 hygienists, 2 front desk, and a doctor. What the hell are you all doing? Yeah. And so between the 2 of them, able to shed some light for me, going, well, we had screamers, autistic patients, we had a tough mom that we're explaining a treatment plan to. So people were busy. Mm-hmm. So, and I think that's good that this didn't mushroom cloud where really it was kind of contained. Right. So it's like, okay, that makes me feel better right there too. So I think the other thing that I haven't mentioned already that was another moment of really make a gut punch to me was in the email that was the all caps incident with dad and should we get him a gift card and all this, the other thing she put in there was when we inspected the bench later, there was a rusty screw and maybe a screw missing. And in my mind, I was like, why would you put that in an email?
Yeah.
Because what you've left out of the email is, were there 15 screws in the bench and there was one rusty one and one missing? So there were still 13 good screws in the bench, which I would imagine because people sit on that bench all day long, including this dad. But just given that information alone, I'm like, somebody suing me could take that and blow it up and make it seem like there were only 3 screws in the stool and one was missing and one was rusty. So the stool, we are negligent in putting out the stool that only has 1 screw. What are you thinking?
Yeah.
And did you say that in front of the dad? God only knows what you said. You know, did you make a comment like, oh, those are all those black screws I've been brushing up? Like, no, you haven't.
Yeah.
But what did you say to him? Did you inspect it in front of the dad? Did you make a comment like, oh, there's a rusty screw? But did you make a comment about how many screws there are actually in the bench?
Right.
So we're talking about 1 or 2 screws out of 20 versus... It was just really defeating gut punch to me that she would put this in an email. I'm like, why do we not have more sense than that? Because if you don't have more sense than that to put it in an email, God only knows what you said in front of this dad.
Right.
And so I think that was another moment of where I was just like, I just give up. I think I'm ready for corporate to come by this because I cannot be there every day. Manager and associate have no clue what's going on. Receptionist is making this seem like we are the most negligent place on the planet and wants me to go buy this man, pay for all his medical bills, and I can't miss a day because clearly there's no communication and no common sense in this building. That's how I felt.
Yeah.
I know that's not fair. I know that's dramatic. Imagine that, me dramatic.
What?
But that is how I felt in that moment. So anyway, then you replied back. And can you tell me, you gave us some really good advice. And then can you kind of walk me through your thoughts as you're getting my 10,000 emails, voicemails, texts about this incident while you're clearly trying to help your other clients? Like, you know, sometimes I forget that I think it's me. You and I, friend.
Well, unfortunately, I didn't even become aware via email and your messages until late that night. And so then I had immediate panic because I had missed an emergency from one of my clients, and you, of all people, I'm like, oh my gosh, Bethany, this major thing blew up, and I didn't see it. I don't think I even messaged you back until like 10:45 at night. So when I saw it, it was, my first thoughts were, how in the heck is this happening again?
Yes.
That was my first thought. Like, how? I'm still baffled by it. I just can't, there's no words. I don't have any words for it other than like, what in the heck? I can't believe I'm reading this and hearing these messages again. My second one was an immediate reaction because I was able to get caught up on what the receptionist said. Should we buy a gift card? And I needed to immediately get the message to you. Don't do that. And I was nervous because I was replying super late at night. Y'all start early the next morning. I knew they were coming in at some point in the morning, and I was like, crap, Bethany, you needed to get this message out sooner about no gift card. So the no gift card and no acknowledgement is the other thing that I said. I didn't want this coming up again at all with the dad. If the dad brought the kids back, I didn't want us like, oh, how are you feeling today? Or I wanted yesterday to act like it had never happened. And so there's a reason for that. Number one, the gift card is just super clear. Anytime I know that somebody was potentially injured on the property, even though this man seems like he's fine, but if I am worried that there could be some kind of claim, we don't want to do anything that implies guilt. So as sad and sorry as it sounds, a gift card could imply guilt, especially if it's a gift card to a massage place. Because what we're saying is you might be sore after your fall in our practice. And I'm like, God, no, please do not give the man a gift card. Because if he wasn't sore before, we've now told him you might be sore just in the act of giving him this gift card. So talk about something that could backfire. I thought that could backfire mentally, him thinking, oh, should I be sore after that fall? And then also now it looks like we're implying some guilt because we're gifting him with something. So the general rule of thumb is the doctor should never, ever, ever, ever pay for anything related to this incident, because it implies guilt and it gives the liability company an easy out. And so we don't want any kind of compensation, even down to a $10 Starbucks gift card. So I know it sounds counterintuitive, because you're like, but the customer service thing to do, not when somebody is potentially injured on the property. So I made that clear via the email that I sent out. And then I said no acknowledgement of it, because I don't know what all was said on the day of the incident. But I do know that the team responded to it quickly. Thank goodness. I don't know what they said, and I didn't want there to be a risk of something accidentally being said. Like, oh gosh, well, we checked that bench out and my goodness, we were missing some screws. It's too risky in my mind. So I wanted there to be absolutely no acknowledgement of it. The other reason I didn't want acknowledgement outside of fear of something being said was the embarrassment factor. Again, if we think about ourselves as adult people, we fell. How embarrassing is that? The last thing we want is for people to remember the next day that we fell. What do we do after we fall? We get up, run to the other side of the room, and hope that nobody saw. And so what I didn't want to do is us bring it back up, and now it's a fresh wound and he's embarrassed all over again, which I didn't want. So for those two reasons, I didn't want anything being said at all. To me, that's the best strategy for protecting the practice, especially with no gift card, but it's also the best strategy for an ongoing relationship, hopefully an ongoing relationship with this particular family. So that was my advice.
And we followed it.
Yes, you did.
And then at our team meeting, you kind of reiterated it with the team and said, hey, this is why. Even though they had already done it, but you were, kind of giving the why behind it. And I think everybody was on the same page as far as, like, this is how we need to handle these going forward. We do need to inform the doctor. We do need to document. We do need to watch what we say. So it was a good recap. And once again, I do not know what or how this has happened again. And I don't know what to say, man.
I don't know either, but you know what? It's another good lesson. I hate that you have to keep being the lesson. I'm really sorry for that, but I also think this is such critical information. And if you don't have a plan with your team or haven't thought through this before or aren't thinking worst case scenario, you should be when it comes to this. Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone. But we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.